Hello, and welcome to Alchemy for the 21st Century, the Rebirth of Resistance. My name's Gary, and I'd like to take a little time to talk with you about current events. And like we told you at the beginning of the year, that 2015 was going to be a active cosmic year with a lot of change, direction, people in the streets, awareness, and shocks. Well, we can say that's been pretty much spot on, and we haven't seen this much activity since 2010. And we can also say is the cosmic windows have been relatively spot on, and if we look at one of the last three, and that would occurred in September, and September was never about apocalyptic endings. It's always about motion and direction, and we see a lot of motion and change occurring. We have a religious leader coming to the West and talking about the UN's Agenda 2030. So what we can say here is it appears that the church has taken a side. We also too see that the bear and the Persians are now given a more definite role in the world. And we also see too is the partial conclusions and organization of trade agreements, and this is relatively very important because it is these trade agreements that will divide the world up into economic regions, and we're beginning to see some consequences of this, because what we have is a nation in the West is going to diminish its presence in one region of the world in order to shift its resources and might to another where new interests will lie. And this is relatively necessary because as these treaties manifest themselves, they will give rise to new opposition that will have to be dealt with. And this brings us back to the Middle East. And what we can say about the Middle East is that we have new players, so we should be getting new results. And one can say is what we might see is two countries will possibly shrink in size due to border changes. And maybe too something new might come out of this. And also too we're going to see the continuation of forced migration. And if you looked at my other videos, you would see that there are reasons for this. And one of the reasons is that these forced migrations are going to regenerate tired old systems. And they will be met with resistance in the short term, but in the long term they will change the face of culture to one that is more universal and will begin the process of global standardization. But there's also a flip side to this, because one must ask, who's going to benefit from these border changes and this depopulation of people? We will have to wait and see. And this brings us over to Africa. And what we see with Africa is being divided up. The Northwest is going to fall under the influence of Europe, and we can say that a large part of the South will fall under the influence of the Chinese. And that's because they're going to need resources to continue their economic engines and engines of change, even though they will still be a investment in the global world. What we're going to see too is China may begin to turn inward, and we're going to see an increase in their population, and China could become a region of its own due to its 1.6 billion consumers. And then we can take a look at India, and India is always very unclear, but what we can say, it appears that India is going to service the other regions. So this brings us over to the politics of the West. And like we told you in the beginning, that the politics of the West is going to be mired in ideologies, and that's pretty much button on. What we could also say too is we have two parties. One party is polishing a 50s domestic model with the hopes of making a nation great again. The other party is pretty much aligning itself with global interest. Let's take another look at that, because what makes a country great? Is a country great because of its power and wealth? This again goes back to definition, because that might not be the whole story here. Maybe what makes a nation great is its uniqueness, how it treats its people, fairness in its system, the quest for justice, and the unity of its population. Because once that slips away and it falls into greed, corruption, division, fear, hate, what we see is greatness begins to slip away and becomes infamy. So what we can say is the end of 2015, for those who have eyes to see, is about revealing. And this revealing is going to slip over into 2016. So 2016 will be about revealing, forced acceptance, continued structural change. And the first window for 2016 will be January 9th, give or take 3 days. So what we can say is that the blessings of the line of Nur is occurring and is falling upon the unexpected and the deserving. And that the chaos of Yabaloth is affecting the world. And one must remember that there is a solution to chaos if one thinks of chaos as a chain of chaotic events that must be played out entirely for its solution to reveal itself. But one must remember that solution is never guaranteed. So we'd also like to take a little time and express our deepest regrets to all the people of the world, both east, west, north, and south, who have lost loved ones, who've lost their homes, their way of life, even their countries, and have been living in extreme conditions. And we hope that in the following years that they will find new blessings. So thank you very much, and I hope you continue viewing my videos.